Hey my sugar bears, welcome back to my channel, Bougie AF. It's your host, JackeeNicole. It's where I say stay bougie on them. It's me feeding you feminism for the soul. It's my soul food offering. It's where I apply pressure to issues by being critical and logical. Now don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's get to the commentary where I can guarantee you I will be doing too much because that's just me. And like Sheree said, who's gonna check me, boo?
Hey y'all, it's your girl JackeeNicole, and you tuned into the Bougie AF channel where I say stay bougie on them, and I'm serving you feminism for the soul. Alright y'all, so let's get into it. So this is going to be a longer than my like little rant videos or even the new variety show where I put some clips together of me, you know, little funny moments or me just talking my shit about different things. I wanted to talk about the fact that y'all know, if you don't know, you will get to know, I am really into like politics. I'm really into everything, right? So it is extremely important as I figure this thing out in YouTube that I don't box myself into just like, oh, I just want to be on the celebrity tip, or I just want to be on the social issues tips. I am a multifaceted person, and I'm not quite sure how that will translate to building my following, but I just hope like I am going to, or people that are going to gravitate to me are going to have interest in a lot of different things, right? Like there's just no way I could just talk about celebrity gossip. There's just no way I could just stay in that box or talk about just social issues. Like I just can't do that, right? So with that being said, I don't even think that would best show off my skills or my abilities if I even tried to, right? So I don't want to do that. I'm going to leave it open to just, you know, coming across of someone who's just knowledgeable and able to speak about a lot of different things. So a variety, right? So anyway, so today you are joining me because I am going to be, reviewing, well, providing commentary to an interview that I recently just seen between Dr. Cornell West and Karen Hunter from the Karen Hunter show. So I'm going to be playing that. I don't know if I told you guys, but I'm telling you now. Cornell West is the person I'm voting for. And part of the reason why I'm voting for Cornell West, I know people say, oh, he can't win. And, you know, and it was just so interesting in the part two, not this part. There was a caller that called in and they said, well, we didn't think that Donald Trump can win, right? So with that being said, you just never know. And I'm not sitting up here saying that I think he has the best odds, but I think his reasoning and that he's most definitely needed in this race. Yes, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. And I'm not into telling people who to vote for. I'm going to tell you who I'm going to vote for. I'm going to give you the reasons why I'm going to vote for. I'm going to give you a perspective to look at different things in a different way. And that's the best that I can hope for. If anything, like any of these topics or anything that I bring up, it's all about perspective. And sometimes you don't have to get in like a heated debate with somebody or come from the place of like, I'm going to change your mind with my facts. Sometimes just sharing your perspective will make people, if they're really interested in learning and growing or any of those other things, will make people just challenge what they think without you even having to have an interaction, to be completely honest. And I can give you an example of this. So I think it was like a couple days ago, if y'all don't know, I think, what's her name? Haley Bailey and her boyfriend DDG. There was a big conversation around her boyfriend and getting mad about her holding hands with this gentleman who she did a movie with, right? And I don't know, movie or whatever. And the boyfriend came out and was like, why are y'all holding hands? You know I'm insecure or something like that. And I remember earlier that day I had tweeted it. I was like, well, I mean, I respect his honesty, right? But him being insecure. And the fact of the matter is, like, if you live in reality, we know you and this, talking about Haley, you and this gentleman who was in a movie together, we know y'all not boyfriend and girlfriend in real life, so you don't have to show up in public holding hands and stuff like we're not fooled by that. And I think more or less that was my general stance on my tweet that morning. And so by the end of the afternoon, there was another woman who I follow, I forgot the lead. I know she goes by the name Kat. She had shared someone else's post. And basically the post just talked about, yes, how can I describe it? She had shared a perspective that says, yeah, he's insecure, but what he's doing is causing problems for her, and can affect her, her career, right? Like, you know, weighing down or hampering her as she's trying to, you know, move up in her career. he's doing things that are making her have to rethink what she's doing in her life in terms of her career. Just really kind of putting like unnecessary stress because of his insecurities. And he's making it publicly known, right? And so one of the things that he's making it publicly known, and then so what ends up happening, especially within the black community, it becomes this weird thing where a woman who's trying to be a boss in her own right, nobody else's boss, live her life, build her career, looks as if though she's trying to emasculate her boyfriend by making him feel insecure. And that's how that translates within the black community. Like, why are you doing that? You're making this man not feel like a man anymore, right? Even though whatever he's going through is his own personal issues and something that he has to work on, which is really, really weird. For him, like, he has to work on that, right? But I'm not gonna say it's really, really weird, because like, if I was married to an actor or whatever, we may have some things that I may be uncomfortable with. So I'm not gonna say weird, but it's the going public with it that's the problem, right? Like, it seems as though you're trying to, in a way, force her to behave the way you want her to behave, or and show up the way you want her to show up, because you've made it so public, and she loves you and she doesn't want to do anything that make you feel bad. So by default, she ends up like minimizing or doing less of whatever it is that's making you feel away. So it's really dark psychology in terms of like when you decide to publicly handle your spouse in the public eye, right? You kind of take that you kind of take their right from them to be able to handle things the way they want without feeling the pressure. But anyway, so she shared that type of perspective, and it made me challenge what I had shared earlier in terms of like, why are you holding his hand anyway, right? Because then I was like, okay, but that's not the same thing. You think, but that's not how in a relationship you handle things, right? And I felt that same way about Kiki and her boyfriend, even though I think that's a hot ass, fake ass mess. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. That's why I won't lend too much time to talking about things that I feel like is staged and weird. And even this Haley thing seems a little weird to me. I'm not gonna be honest with you. Because it's just like when a man and a woman comes together in a relationship, however those rules or however they define, I'm going to know my man's insecurities and what he doesn't like and what he expects of me in terms of being in public, in terms of interacting with the opposite sex. I'm going to know those things, right? And he's going to know how I feel about those things, right? So there's no ever a situation where I'm at a concert with another man and outside of how she was dressed, because who cares, right? It's really not about how you dress. Like, you literally, it's about the behavior, right? So for me, it was like, that was really weird, that part. I don't believe it was about how she was dressed. But why are you up on Usher? You know what I mean? In your relationship. And if that's you and your husband, because that has nothing to do with work, right? And if that's what you think that you have to do in terms of being noticed publicly, to get in the blogs and get attention, I may not want to be associated with that, right? That my girl is all that friendly in every nigga face. I may not want that type of look associated with me, right? And he has a right to have that feeling for himself. So for me, my whole point in this is like, it does not need to be in the public eye, basically, is what I'm trying to say. These are things that you establish within your relationship. These are the reasons why you date. This is all that other stuff, right? Because just a couple months ago, he was with the Chicago fam, and he was like fam, and everything was good. So I'm thinking y'all have already reviewed how y'all want each other to show up publicly around the opposite sex, right? Like, how do we miss all of that conversation to get to having a baby with somebody? I'm laughing, but it's the God's honest truth. Like, y'all done missed a whole lot to get to this place where he around your family, he feel like family. Y'all are like lovey-dovey. This looking like this is gonna be the one for forever, and then we back at the basics of beginning relationship, sorting things out. Like, that don't make no damn sense. That don't make no damn sense to me at all. And that's why I couldn't get with the conversation, because I was like, this seems like this is for the internet. All right, so let's get back to why we're here, because we just wasted like some minutes on that. But all right, so we are going to be listening to Cornell West and Karen Hunter. I thought it was a really good interview. And in terms of Cornell West, in terms of like his intentions, sometimes you do need somebody to get into the race and cause a little havoc. Make people answer questions and deal with things that they don't want to deal with. And for me, my opinion about Joe Biden and his age and his inabilities or unwillingness to communicate with black people in terms of like what do we want going forward, and we want something, right? And I think, you know, where you have a party who just says that we're done enough and they make that decision on their own, and won't entertain or not talking about what specifically they can do for black Americans in this country, we have a problem. Because again, I'm not black if I don't vote for you. And so I need to understand why you so close to my group of people, and you don't want to talk to us, right? I need to understand why you feel so comfortable to have Gladys Knight, honor her for Kennedy honors, and she wants to have a conversation with you and you ignore her, right? So that's that black that you told that was that, if you ain't black, you can't vote for if you're not black. I'm sorry, you're not black if you don't vote for him. But then you feel like you can ignore us and don't need to have conversations with us, right? Or I'm someone, I remember when you did have a conversation with the press after you got elected, and the way you screamed on them as if though you owned us. You don't own us, right? And so, again, I'm not telling who you to vote for. I'm not telling you any of that. But what I'm saying to you is that, respect gets respect. And at this point, I don't feel respected, right? And in terms of like where we're going forward in this country, I just see my people group and the Black American group being left behind more and more, right? And I'm one of those honest conversationalists, right? You're never going to catch me in the clubhouse room, or you're never going to catch me in conversation where I'm not keeping it real about exactly what is going on, right? And still being able to understand what part that we play as Black Americans and what part the government play or the white man or whatever, systematic oppression and all that. Now, I fully understand all of what's at play in terms of like what has caused our situation. So I'm never going to front like that. I'm never going to just, keep my conversation just about historical things that have happened, because we were slaves. And so because we were slaves, now we singing about my pussy hole pink and my booty hole brown. Like, I'm not going to give you that type of conjecture. Like, I'm not putting those things together to make it, like, to try to make it make sense. I'm just not going to do that for you, right? Like, I'm not. I'm going to look at things for what it is and say, hey, no, I don't care what you say our ancestors went through. You ain't got no business to be out here like that. And that's a point, period, blank to me. So let's get into this interview. I thought it was a really great interview. I'm not going to try to I'm not going to try to interject as a lot. Because it is 31 minutes, and I am trying to keep the videos down to around the half an hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes mark at this point. So let's get into it.
And now he is throwing his hat in the ring to be the president of these United States. And welcome, brother Cornell West, doctor.
I want to say thank you, my dear sister, Professor Karen Hunter of Hunter College. Yes, indeed. I salute you, salute your precious loved ones, and what a force for good you have been and remain.
Well, thank you. I must admit, sir, when I saw this commercial, the first question in my mind was why? Why did you need to do this? Why are you doing this, Cornell West? Why?
No, I hear you. No, the calling is still the same. Been the same for 55 years. Trying to the best of my fallible ability to tell the truth. Condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak, especially the least of these. And then justice. Making sure people are treated with dignity and sanctity. You know what I mean?
So
now it is. It spills over in electoral politics now.
It doesn't though. I mean, because I just did a really quick civics lesson, right? The president is a specific thing. You got three duties. You're a statesman, you appoint the Supreme Court, and you got the nuclear codes. So do we need Dr. Cornell West to have those things? Don't we need you in them streets doing what you've been doing?
Well, I'm going to still hit the streets even as president, you see, because of my conception of what it is to be a public official is to be a servant. The servant takes a lot of different forms. So on the one hand, you got your head of foreign policy, right? You got 800 military units around the world. You got U.S. troops in over 100 countries. We don't need to have that many military units. We don't need to be an empire at all. I want to be head of the empire to dismantle the empire in the name of what? Empowering those Sly Stone called everyday people, those James Cleveland called ordinary people. How do you save your democracy? You got to let your empire go.
I right, so I will have to say this though. This is where I do disagree with Cornell West, Dr. Cornell West, in terms of our military and us keeping a strong military. I most definitely believe there's a lot of unnecessary spending that goes into the military. But do I think it's something that we shouldn't have, like a strong standing military that we invest in? No, I don't. Actually, if you actually look into Germany and a lot of other countries, a lot of people have not invested in their military over the years, and so they wouldn't be ready for anything right now. And they've actually, there's been actually a problem, and I know they don't highlight it and they don't talk about it a lot. But no, there's just a lot going on in terms of like how this map is moving and how the world is moving and changing with new players coming into it, right? There's just no way you can deny that China is not going to be a player, right? Or is a player, right? There's no way, even if you think about, India, right? India is becoming a player, right? I mean, one of the things I've also looked into is in terms of like we were always talking about manufacturers and leaving the country and going over to seas and going over to China and different places. One of those other places that they went to a lot and have built up their country is India, right? India has received a lot of jobs, a lot of corporations, and their country is changing and they're becoming, a powerful country. And we see what's happening in Africa and stuff like that. So with that being said, I am not someone who will jump on board of just like, tearing down our military because I am very US of A in that type of way. Not to say we are an empire, we're not, out here, taking people's lands and stuff like that, enslaving and stuff like that. But when it comes to wanting to be number one in the world, I have no problem with that. So, yeah, I have no problem with that.
We don't need to be the empire in the world. We need to be a nation among nations. That's what the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and Fannie Lou Hamer looks like in the White House. That's what it looks like in electoral politics, right? We're going to eliminate poverty. We're going to cut back on militarism. We're going to make sure any form of xenophobia, racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, anti-Jewish, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim, it has no place in our public life. We're going to create a bully pulpit that says we ought to be about what John Coltrane called a love supreme. And that's not mamby-pamby love. No, we're talking about the love of a hated people for 400 years. That's what you hear John Coltrane's horn. That's what my campaign is about. Justice is what love looks like in public.
All right. Walk us through this. Dr. Cornell West is here. He's running for president of these United States. When did you make this decision? Walk us through the moment you said, you know what? I'm going to file this paperwork and I'm going to get the signatures I need, and I'm going to be on the ballot. When did you make this decision, and how did it come about?
Well, it was first brother from the People's Party, Brother Nick, came up and gave me a call, as well as dear Brother Chris Edwards, and said, we've been thinking seriously of having you all run for office. We met, we talked for hours. Brother Chris said, no, I got to think about it a little bit longer and decided let me hold back. I thought about it, prayed on it, pondered on it. And I said, this country is in such internal decay and external decline that it would be wonderful to reintroduce America to the best of itself. And who is the best of America? Martin Luther King Jr., Rabbi Heschel, Dorothy Day, Grace Lee Ball, Edward Said, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker. We ain't got the Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong yet. The best in this nation over the last 200 and some years that can do what? That can revitalize and regalvanize the democratic energies. What are democratic energies? Energies that focus on the basic social needs of everyday people. Quality education, health care for all, decent housing, food. It's hard to even think of food insecurity that's so rampant in the richest nation in the history of the world. And I knew that neither political party, Democrats and Republicans, really speak to the needs of poor and working people. They both tie to corporate interests. They captured by the wealthy.
Nick Brana, who has some controversy around him himself, part of the Draft Bernie for People's Party group, Draft Bernie movement for the People Party. He founded it. Got some little issues. Came to you and said, "This is something." Is this to bring the agenda? Because I understand, primaries are important for bringing agendas to the forefront so that people now are forced to have to talk about the things that they wouldn't be inclined to talk about if they're running unopposed. Is this the candidacy, or are you really trying to win?
Oh, trying to win. You see, I made the shift to the Green Party, as you know. Thank God, Sister Jill Stein and Brother John Baraka and the others. And the Green Party, of course, has much more ballot access when it comes to number of states. But no, anytime you come out of the box, you're coming out to win. No doubt about that. Now, it's true, winning can be defined in a number of different ways, but no, I want to, through my own fallible self, because I'm a cracked vessel like anybody else, but I've had so much love poured into me. I want to bear witness to that love. I've been taught some things about justice and freedom. I want to bear witness to that justice and freedom. I'm just a moment in a much larger tradition, a much larger movement. You see, there'd never be such a thing as black freedom, as you know, written about so wonderfully in so many different contexts with different figures and things. That the ballot is not the sole or fundamental site that people become free. It is one particular site in a larger conception of human beings who have a variety of different dimensions to their lives. And so the political goes hand in hand with the personal and the social and the economic and the existential and the spiritual. And for me, I'm just one moment, one candidate, one heading of a campaign in light of a much long tradition of struggle. It's just a matter of holding up that bloodstained banner in the name of the least of these. I speak, of course, as a revolutionary Christian. So the 25th chapter of Matthew means a whole lot to me. What you've done to the least of these, you've done unto me. The orphan, the widow, the fatherless, the motherless, the oppressed, no matter what color, no matter what gender, no matter what sexual orientation, no matter what national identity.
866-801-8255. I'm going to put the number out because we have a live national audience. So these potentially could be, your constituents. They want, so I don't want to hog up, the time to ask you questions because I do have questions. But I also want folk whose vote you are courting to be able to also ask questions. As you know, this is that, Urban View is that show, is that channel here. Amazing audience that are very politically and civically engaged. They not only vote, they register other people, and they donate to candidates and etc. 866-801-8255. I look at the time that we're in. We're in a particular time in history that 100, 200 years from now will be in the history books, if there's still books, because we have not just, there's been a convergence of a lot of things at the same time. I also feel like with the emergence of a DeSantis and a Trump still there with all the indictments, he probably will win from jail if he's on the ballot, right? Is this the time for, and I'm firm in understanding that we need a third party. I'm firm that we need probably a fourth and a fifth party. I'm firm in the notion that we need more choices, right? But is this the time, as we look at the country and the fragility of it, with the racists that have overtaken the Republican Party, and they are really clear about their agendas, anti-black and everything else, right? Anti-white, everything. Is this the time to start to cast aspersions on the only candidate right now that has a shot to win, which is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? Is this the time to do that? And what's the strategy there? Because I want to, because if you undermine him, you're making it easy for whoever comes out of the Republican Party to win.
Well, you're absolutely right to acknowledge the way in which Trump himself, Brother Trump is a gangster dead up. He's a neo-fascist and a gangster. He's already won. He's got a following, a slice of the country. Now, keep in mind now, 1 out of 9 folk who voted for Trump voted for Brother Bernie Sanders. Of course, as you know, I was with Brother Bernie twice. And so Trump being himself a neo-fascist. A neo-fascist is someone who hides the fact that big money and big military is behind him, but convinces everyday people to scapegoat the most vulnerable rather than confront the most powerful. So he acts like he's a populist, but he's actually a neo-fascist because he still cuts taxes for the rich. He still demonizes gays, lesbians, immigrants, black folk, Muslims, Arabs, and so forth and so on. See, trans especially. Trans is probably the most vulnerable, precious folk in our society right now in terms of the vicious attacks. So you're right, that neo-fascism is strong. But the problem is, you see, is that Brother Biden, who you know, of course, is one of the architects of mass incarceration. You know, to me, that's a crime against humanity. I've taught in prison for 41 years.
Wait, pause, Dr. West. Are you saying as a member of the Senate?
As a member of the Senate, 1994.
Okay, so he wasn't alone.
No.
And that was under Clinton. Like Clinton and Bush, like there's been a massive widespread.
He led the charge under the Democratic Party. So this is okay. Not just of Biden, but of the Democratic Party under Clinton and Gore. You're absolutely right. And many black politicians kicked
Yes, because they were asking for relief because of the crack that. I mean, but what I'm saying is
Okay, so I'm gonna stop here because I most definitely agree with Karen, because I hear this talked about in terms of like the over sentencing and what came out of the 94 crime bill in terms of Joe Biden being the one who actually spearheaded that, was really vocal about getting that passed. It was a bipartisan bill that was passed by both Democrats and Republicans, and it was something that most definitely was something that was coming from the people in terms of society was asking for our officials to do something, right? We voted you in there. We have this drug problem. People are dying. People are getting robbed, killed. Like, this is really causing havoc within our communities. We need you to do something, right? So there was this national push for something to be done in terms of that crime bill. Now, did they get it all right? Hell to the no. Did some things come out of that crime bill that was horrific? Yes. But hindsight is always 2022, right? 2020. Right. So with that being said, like, I hate that we try to just like demonize like one person for that crime bill without looking at the totality of like what was going on. There's just too much video evidence that really puts it in perspective that this wasn't just like a way that white people got together and tried to figure out how do we hold down the black people even further by giving them drugs and also giving ourselves drugs, but it's going to affect them more. Like, I don't know. I think there's just this way of thinking where people get real too conspiratorial. For me, there are most definitely evidence of certain people who were getting drugs from government officials or people in law enforcement and stuff like that. There's all of that did exist, but not to the, the grand... not to that grand place where people literally think that the United States government got together and orchestrated this type of demise for the black community. There's nothing that I have seen that has support that. There's no drug dealers that have come to, there's no massive amount. I'm sorry, there's not like numerous drug dealers that are coming together and say, hey, yeah, your government wanted us to do this. Like, there's not been any of that. Like, I'm just going to be completely honest. Of course, there's been dirty people within each, like the CIA, the FBI, law enforcement. If you look into Larry Davis, if you look into Freeway Ricky Ross, like there are dirty people, but not to the extent that people try to make it.
There's a thread that can be pulled and go all the way back to Ehrlichman and Nixon that has been a constant drumbeat that nobody has challenged because we allowed these folks to come into our churches and we just voted. And now that we know better, we can do better. But you're not wrong, but is now the time. And can people not be pushed into the way LBJ was pushed into doing something that Southern redneck did not want to do, but all of those voting rights acts came under his watch because he was forced into it by a country of black folk that said no more. Martin Luther King said, we're not waiting.
But see, what we had against LBJ was you had a movement of courageous folk like Fannie Lou and Ella and Martin and Diane Nash and James Lawson who were doing the pushing. We haven't had enough black leaders pushing Biden to deal with poverty, pushing Biden to deal with mass incarceration, pushing Biden to deal with homelessness, pushing Biden to deal with quality housing? No.
No, aren't you a black leader? Dr. West, aren't you
I'm an elected official. I've been raising my voice. I was doing that against Obama, as you know.
Because all those people you named were not elected. Faneuil Hamer, Diane Nash, none of them were elected. They were pushed from the outside.
Yeah, I most definitely side with Cornell West. That LBJ most definitely, if you go back and look at him, he's probably, he was a racist and stuff like that. It was the pressure of society, pressure of strong voices that Dr. Cornell was called out. Now, the problem in today's society is that we do have people. Now, if you remember what started this portion of the conversation, she said, "Is it time? Should we be doing this?" And da da da. And we're always being told that, oh, wait, it's coming, wait your turn and all this other stuff, and putting ourselves to the back burner for what is perceived the greater good for everybody else, right? And so now 50, 60 years later, like, there's been a lot of us pushing ourselves or getting comfortable with the civil rights movement or what came out of that. And we kind of dialed back in our politics because it was made to seem as though, oh, y'all are whining and asking for too much. And, we have to stay with our hands out. We have to continue to whine. There has been egregious things that have been done against our community. So with that being said, questioning and pushing back and applying that pressure, we needed people like Fannie Lou and stuff like that. But what I find, like even myself, and even saying that I'm going to vote for Cornell West, we have so many people who's willing to go along with what they're saying and go along and unchallenge it, and not push back and not be that pressure that you then look as though, oh, you're a disturbance, you're causing problems, da, 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 da. And it's sort of like, no, exactly what, Fannie Lou and them were doing was being a disturbance, causing problems, you know what I mean? Applying that pressure, because they were able to do that. They were able to question narratives. They were able to say, no, you're not doing enough, right? So with that being said, it's tough, right? And I think Karen also has to acknowledge that within our community, there's just so many people just willing to go with, oh, you're not going to get no better than this in terms of when it comes to Joe Biden. And I just think he's way too comfortable. So if someone like, a Cornell West is going to challenge that, and having to be in that third party, because he doesn't say it in this portion of the interview that I'm showing you, but there's another portion where someone's asked him, is this the one? No, but there's another, in another interview, same interviewer, but just a different clip, where someone asked him, and he said, well, Joe Biden and them have decided that they're not going to do any debates in terms of like him debating other potential Democrats that may be running for president. He's not doing that. He's waiting to debate to get to the round where it's just him against the other parties, right? So with that being said, nobody's going to challenge him or in terms of what the messaging or what the agenda will be for the Democrats within the Democratic Party. He is just going to determine what that agenda is, move forward, and then, you go against the other candidates in the other party with the assumption being made that we're all on board with whatever is determined, even though he's not laid it out, even though he's not, spoken to the people, he's not getting any feedback on what the people want. He's just going to move forward on, oh, I already know. I already know. And if you don't take that as a form of disrespect, I don't know what's wrong with you and why you're so willing to go along with that. How you know? I didn't get no survey. You ain't asked nobody. I haven't seen nobody or have certain people who are gonna, step out and tell us that this is the right thing to do. I'm just waiting on motherfucking Angela Rye and them, and you know what I mean, and the Simones and them to finally pop their asses out and try to tell us like, these are your guys. No, these are the people who are helping put deposits in your bank account. Like, that's what they are, right? And so let's be completely honest when you try to talk down to us and tell us that, we don't know what we're talking about, or we're not, being conscious, or we're not aware of the issues really at play here. No, we're quite aware, right? I'm quite aware of the fact that the matter is that much may not change for us with either a Donald Trump or a Joe Biden. Quite aware. Got it, sis. Got it. We got it. Much may not change with these motherfuckers. we got it, right? Because if a lot's going to change, right, and if there's something on the horizon for us, you'd be able to lay that out, right? You'll be able to tell us what that black agenda is and those issues that you plan on addressing going forward. But that's not what we're getting. We're getting Miss Gladys Knight being spoken to, Simone and Miss Angela Rye. That's what we're getting. Right? Real life. Like, we don't have that access, right? We don't got that special access that you guys have, right? Right? That's what we're getting. The people who are black, if you vote for them, but you can't talk to the people. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They were pushing for the outside, but they had a movement. I mean, under Obama, we tried to talk about poverty taps. Smiling myself.
Okay, oh my goodness. Okay, you bring up Obama. All right, you brought up Obama. Hold on.
But Biden hasn't had is pressure to deal with the needs of poor and working people, especially black folk.
So why not put the pressure on the people that have access? Like, there were people that went into Obama's White House to go to Super Bowl parties and hang out and take pictures. If I can tell you how many people had a picture of themselves with the Obamas at the White House, and I'm like, we ain't getting nothing there, and then you complaining about the 8 years when you ain't asked for nothing but a picture. So is that Obama's fault or is that our fault?
Well, it's both. It's both. Because Obama shouldn't even need to have people put pressure on it. He did for Wall Street. Wall Street didn't have to go in. He bailed Wall Street out. Not one Wall Street executive go to jail, given all the crimes taking place, the insider trick to get market manipulation. So
what happened to the Wall Street project? Wait, hold on. But there was a Wall Street project led by a civil rights activist that could have said, "Hey, buddy," especially since that same activist said he wanted to cut off his balls on a hot mic. Hey, guess what? You're giving that money. I'm saying, like, you got to call it what it is and tell the truth. Saying the devil.
You got to tell it, and the truth is always double-edged. It goes against us and it goes against others. But my point is this, that right now with Joe Biden moving toward World War III with the proxy war with Russia, you got Trump moving toward the second Civil War at home, Biden leading for the Third World War abroad. We between a rock and a hard place. Now, what we gonna do? Given our calling, given our integrity,
here's what I'm saying.
Or the vulnerable, the relatively weak, politically. That's what this campaign is about, which is the same thing as what the Black freedom struggle has been about ever since Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and the others had to go into the belly of the white supremacist, slavocratic beast. That's all I'm doing.
Would it be more effective, Dr. West, because you are a philosophical genius. You think deeply about things, both spiritual and practical. Would it not be more effective for us to have a movement, lead a movement that would usher in all of the things across parties, right? Because to me, I just want the stuff to get done. I don't care whether you have an R or a D next to your name. I just need it to get done. We live someplace. if you represent my community, you need to get it done or else, right? And that or else needs to be really, really codified. We need to spell it out, right? So that people understand, so it has teeth behind it. To your point, I feel like a lot of folk come and they get a check or a pat on the head and it's enough. But instead of throwing out...
I will say that I think that's a valid point, that no matter if there's a D or a R, there's a job that has to be done. And I wish more people in like red states, like in terms of especially the southern states that are suffering because of just lack of resources being put into the communities, if you decided to really get involved and engage civically, right, and really understand your power, and I'm talking about in states, in cities like a Memphis and like a Jackson, and where else in Alabama, Mobile, and if you really got involved and decided that we need to see change within our communities and stuff like that, that requires you showing up, and even if it is a Republican senator, and being vocal and speaking out and putting pressure on them, right? And I don't see us do it enough coming out of these cities that look disgusting, right? That needs a lot of help. And I'm going to be that harsh on it because you're only being treated that way because you're allowing it, right? And I truly believe that, right? I come from, I'm from Boston. And one thing looking at other cities and stuff like that and how they're kept and stuff like that, Man, you have trash running over or any of the other stuff. They coming out and they are going to tag you up, meaning ticket you. You could lose your home, and also they're not going to play with you. And as harsh as that may sound, you really do have to care about where you live at, right? And so with that being said, I'm not quite sure why some of these cities and some of these places look the way they look. I'm just really not. There's just too much money. I mean, too much money in the United States for any of our cities to look the way that they do. Some of them they do, right? Like Baltimore. Like y'all not absorb. I'm not gonna leave anybody out in terms of like when I give this critique. Like it's just way too much money. We spending way too much money, sending way too much money overseas, and for people to tell me only 1% of our GDP is being sent overseas and all this stuff. Okay, if it's only 1% being sent over, then they have more than enough money to reinvest into these cities. The infrastructure. There was this accident I seen in Baltimore, and this is how bad it looks in some of these cities. And this gentleman was walking down the street next to a building. Somebody else was coming down the street speeding their asses off, ran the intersection, hit a car, and the gentleman on the sidewalk who's in front of this building, when the other person hit the car in the intersection, everything pushed into the gentleman walking past the building. Right now, let me tell y'all, they hit the cars hit the building, and the building crumbled. The building just crumbled, and the guy who was walking past at the same time of the accident, he ended up getting killed and dying in this accident. But my whole point is, like, we're talking about structures and stuff like that of rotting and decaying buildings just for blocks and blocks in some of these cities, especially like a Detroit and stuff like that, right? Where people are not, there's no investment, so there's no fixing of that. That is something that when it comes to this country, we should have no problem with going and cleaning up. There should be a budget for cleaning up communities. If not nothing else, we can afford to do that, right? But if the communities are not speaking up and saying or putting pressure and saying, we want you to clean this, and I don't care who pays for it. I pay taxes enough for it to be paid for. Right? So that's what I'm saying. No matter Republican or Democrat, y'all should be speaking up and saying, no, we have a problem here. Right? And with that being said, if you speak up and show that you're engaged that much, they may fear that you may come out and vote. Right now, if you don't care how they treat you, they're not fearing that you're going to come out and vote because you don't really grasp them. You're not grasping the fact of the matter is that they're in office because you don't give a fuck about how they treat you. So you're not showing up to the polls. So they have nothing to fear. So they can exist without even acknowledging you and your situation and the conditions that you live in because you're not showing up. So let's ignore it if they're ignoring it. That's just what it's really coming down to.
Our ire against the people who represent us that we didn't elect to represent us. We didn't take a vote and say, this is the person you should talk to. We should roundly say, that's not who you should be talking to. Because we didn't tell you to talk to them, and they can't deliver anything.
But see, one big difference between Martin King and Fannie Lou Hamer and most of our leaders today is that these days people are easily co-optable. They get incorporated so quick. They're so glad to be a black face in a high place.
Facts.
They become complacent and so comfortable with themselves and their position. They become so well adjusted to injustice. You see, Martin and them wouldn't do that.
Facts.
It's very interesting. I just announced a few weeks ago, right?
Exactly what I just said.
You giving all these attacks on me. I'm going to determine the whole election. I'm just a fallible black man that announced a few weeks ago, and now they think I'm so powerful. All I'm trying to do is bear witness, and I'm going to use whatever power I have to be true to my calling and my God and my poor and working people here and around the world. That's who I am. That's what it is to me, you see.
Because we are students of history, both of us. Me less than you. I don't have the degrees to put that on my chest. But I remember Hillary Clinton was running for president. You supported Bernie Sanders, right? And a lot of people didn't vote in that election because of super predator, because of the Clintons, and they
same mass incarceration.
Right, all same thing that we're in right now.
That's true.
And Hillary lost, and we got Trump. during a pandemic with a person who can't read, didn't have the pandemic plan. A lot of our community suffered and died. A lot of the misinformation put people's lives in jeopardy. Not to mention the climate in this country. Woo-wee, because people, and I saw Mark Lamont Hill, who was very much a Bernie bro and was very...
Right.
That division with Jill Stein, with all of that, created an environment for... And listen, I was never a fan of Hillary. What I said then is what I'm saying now. It was about the Supreme Court. I could give a damn if Hillary was in that pizza shop. There's going to be 1, 2, maybe 3 Supreme Court seats, and that's going to impact our lives for the next 2 generations. I said that from day one. I was right. Right. We're here again, Dr. West. And why would...
And she's absolutely right. I remember when Hillary was running for president, and there was so much chatter, I remember on Facebook, that had nothing to do with actually the issues, or more or less personal feelings, and more or less men having a problem with this woman, right? And a lot of times, what I did see get brought up in terms of like the West Indian community, because I'm from Boston. So for me, my timeline looks a little different than probably some other people, right? In terms of blackness. So in my timeline, it's going to be like a lot of Haitian Americans feeling some sort of way about Clinton and what they did in terms of like, their organization that was in Haiti that raised all that money. And basically they feel like they took that money and they didn't really do anything for the people, right? And they're entitled to feel that way. So that came up. Also, what I did see on my timeline a lot of times was this lack of understanding of the bigger picture. And a lot of times that does happen to us. And I think that happens because when you have a population of people in terms of like the black community, it's not just black American, just black in general, right? Who are unaware and don't know the process and don't know civics, don't know the government, doesn't know how it intertwines and how everything works together, then I think people wrongfully make those assumptions that like who the president is does not matter, right? That was such a big thing during that campaign. Oh, whoever the president is doesn't matter. People are more concerned about the president and he really don't affect your lives. But then as soon as Trump got in there and he shut the government down and people weren't able to get their food stamps and all this other shit, it clicked to them on how the president matters, right? Or when he did things like, that Muslim travel ban, it started to click that it really does matter who the president is, right? Because there's ways that they can do things to get around. So where people try to minimize like what the president can do and the effects of him, that is so not true, right? We've seen the effects of, Donald Trump and his inability to lead and his inability to be just more of a distraction and more of a nuisance in terms of like when it came to COVID, right? He wasn't just not a smart person, and he was really off the cuff so much. He wasn't reading his briefs. He wanted to do things his way, and his way was always being that person that goes against the grain and goes against the doctors and wants to come across as this strong, that strong macho type man that will do that. And don't mind being ignorant, as long as it just looks like strength. Right? Toxic masculinity is basically what it is, right? It's a sign of toxic masculinity. He was willing to do that, and it cost millions and millions of people their lives, more or less black people, right? Because they were willing to buy into all that anti-vax conversation, right? They were willing to buy into a president who was not, who was causing confusion. Basically, so that led to my community, right, feeling if they're confused and they're not really taking it also, and they have questions. We got questions. We know what our history is. We know about Tuskegee. We know about all these experiments and all these things that they did to black people. I ain't taking it, right? Because there was no clear direction coming from our presidency, right? So from our president. So that was an effect that we felt by having the wrong person in office, right? Because he was able to, cause confusion.
We make the same mistake, because that was a mistake.
Well, there are other factors, my dear sister, namely that if Sister Ruth had left earlier from the court, that would have made a difference.
Yes.
And if they had put pressure on Mitch McConnell, Mitch held that seat empty for all of those months, and the Democrats didn't go ballistic. Obama didn't go ballistic. They succumbed to that manipulation.
I agree.
You got to come out swinging on it.
I agree that the Democrats will most definitely they act like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be completely honest, act like pussies. Like they literally sometimes are. They behave in such a weak fashion that it turns my stomach. It makes me pissed. I was upset when the guy from, I think it's Minnesota, Wisconsin. What's his name? Bernie? No, what's his name? Al Franken. When they made him step down, I was pissed about that because there was just as many deplorable ass people on the Republican side, and we never come out and make them like step down. Like we just don't. And it just seems really weird that we're always conceding to these people as if though like they're operating in good faith and that they're really trying to have conversations with us, and it's just not the case. They're not working with us. They don't budge, right? And when it came down to the Supreme Court, they told us that, the Democrats, I don't know, I'm not taking the us in them position, but whatever. They told the Democrats, oh, no, you can't put someone in the seat, this president's on his way out, it's just not right. And then they turn around and do the same things that they tell us that, that we shouldn't be doing, right? And so it just feels like, are y'all working together at this point to just don't give a fuck? Right, because that's what it seems like, right? Like, there's just no way you can play this, be the bigger person, be the side that shows that you're willing to extend the olive branch and, be about bipartisanship and work together. And the other side just keeps showing you, we gonna play on that as long as you let us. And that's exactly what they do. What's good for the goose is not good for the gander with them. It's what's good for us is what's good for us. Y'all can't do what we do over here. Yeah, we cricket as hell and we way out in the open about our shit. Don't you dare. Don't you dare say nothing racist or seem as though you have some type of bias against a group of people. And so that's, even if you look at how they handle AOC and her friends, I can't really think of their names right now, but the senators from Minnesota and stuff like that, the Muslim representatives and stuff like that, they had all these set of rules of like these women making statements that are considered racist and all this other stuff. But then on the other end, you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene who says whatever the hell she wants, and you have other people in the Republican Party say whatever the fuck they want, and nobody comes down on their racism, nobody comes down on their xenophobia, nobody comes down on any of that, right? It's crazy.
That doesn't mean you're not right, because the Supreme Court is still central. If Hillary had won, there would be different people on the court. There's no doubt about that. But these other factors are very important too, in real time. And so now on the other hand, Hillary is like Biden. You see, she's so tied to militarism. Neither one have seen a war that they have not supported. And that's dangerous, not just here, but around the world when you have World War III possibilities with nuclear exchange. And so, that, as much as I would have not wanted Trump, and that's why I actually supported Biden last time, I thought that he was going to really deliver for poor and working people, because I was part of the committee that Bernie put me on the committee to put pressure on the Democratic Party. What happened? That progressive wing is just window dressing for a corporate Democratic Party. What have they actually done? Not just for poor people and working people, but around the world. You got the Palestinians on the West Bank getting shot down like I don't know what. Doesn't make any difference what party the president is. Those are human beings too. If they were Lithuanians, if they were Jewish, if they were black, if they were brown, I would be just as concerned. But that's U.S. foreign policy. Foreign policy and domestic policy go hand in hand. They're tied together.
So Bernie Sanders, Senator Sanders, from a very homogenous state, by the way.
But out of Brooklyn,
Yeah, but ain't been in Brooklyn in a while. Very 99% white in the state that, supports this president. He supports Bernie. So why hasn't he been more, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of the people that supported Bernie Sanders, where has he been? He's been really quiet in his mittens and his, hey, Bernie, been really quiet.
Is that Brother Bernie Sanders?
Yeah.
No, I love Brother Bernie. I just have disagreement with him on this. So I think he has the same deep fear of Trump, and therefore he and AOC and the others prematurely came out so quickly support Biden. And don't get me wrong, I do believe that, good people disagree on things. I don't believe that everybody got to follow me. I'm not no Pied Piper. But I can tell you this, I don't like lying. You see, if you don't support Biden, don't tell the world the way AOC says, he's done a pretty good job. No, all this gig economy, what do you think all the strikes are about? Why do you think they're about to shut the country down against UPS? Why do you think the workers are going out in Hollywood? This economy is not the best it can be. He has done pretty good.
Facts.
He does a few decent things, but don't lie to the people ever.
Well, it's better than the previous guy.
And he's not lying because there's a gentleman, whatever, I guess an animal because that's his name, on them people's clubhouse. He likes to quote, and there's some people who love to quote the unemployment rate, and they like to say it's the lowest it's ever been, right? And at the same time, if you think about stats, and stats are really good and very useful, but you also have to have a mind to understand what's being stated to you in that stat, right? You're just telling me that people are working, right? You're not speaking to the quality of life people are having. You're not speaking to people living under not able to have a livable wage. You're not speaking to any of that. You're just saying people are working, right? And when you're looking at the economy and you're looking at the effects and you're looking at the black community, we're working, but we're working harder. We're working the hardest to get the least amount, right? So when I have a pompous, arrogant, out of touch ass professor on them people's clubhouse trying to quote me a stat about people just working in general, I'm looking at the quality of life and the totality of effects of when I know the numbers don't also represent the fact. It's because you said people are working. Also tell me the numbers of percentages of how many people on disability, social security, or social programs in general that are needing that type of assistance to survive. That matters, right? That matters. So don't ever let anybody try to just minimize what the Black American experience is by throwing you out some fucking stats. Know what those stats are, right? Know exactly what they speak to. They speak to active they speak to active claims that are right now happening in terms of unemployment. That's what they speak to. Right? They don't speak to the totality of what jobs are being worked. And then I think there was one gentleman, because I talked about the fact if you look at the, certain cities and towns, and, the fact that we have, manufacturing companies have left the United States. And so a lot of opportunities, a lot of towns, a lot of states have been heavily affected by that. One gentleman, I think he came, because I think, because you pick up on what people talk about. So I guess they've picked up a little bit on what the things that matter to me. So he comes in the room one day and he says, oh, but I think he said 200 something thousand jobs have been added into the workforce. What type of jobs have been added to the workforce? Because I'm really, 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 really understanding that when you talk about the type of jobs, that really does matter, right? Especially when you talk about a community of people. And I'm going to continue to say it till it burns. I'm going to continue to say it till motherfuckers feel it. You're talking to someone who comes from a community that understands that people really can't read and write. I mean, people aren't able to read, right? We're talking about third and fourth grade reading levels. We're talking about 75% of black men not being able to read. So when you're telling me about 200,000 plus jobs being added back to the economy, what type of jobs are we talking about? Are we talking about jobs that I know that are unattainable? Because, Indeed is filled with a whole bunch of jobs, right? But if you have a population or a group of people who have been uneducated, right, from whatever the circumstances have been in their life, right, they don't qualify for those fucking jobs. So when I say 200 jobs that, in terms of Nestle deciding to close a plant in New Jersey and go to Mexico, I am pretty sure those 200 employees don't have a certain skill set that they could walk into a Google building or any type of building and get these high paying jobs. That's not the community that we're talking about. When you say all of these jobs have been added. Because even if you all these jobs have been added. I mean, we go to Walmart, we see they don't really have cashiers like that. I mean, let's be completely honest with that. I'm going to the Stop and Shop, and I'm seeing, there's more self-checkout lines than there are cashier, people bringing your food in and stuff like that. I'm seeing less of that. We're seeing McDonald's trying to move to more automated, systems where, you just put in what you want and the food come out type of situation. So jobs being lost there, right? We see a lot of automation happening. So what type of jobs? Don't just throw some shit out there to me.
That's all I want to say. And I don't think the guy come back.
That's the truth there, but I mean, but you want to be able to always stay connected with
our
the suffering of the people.
Yes, yeah, that I agree with. 866-801-8255. I don't know why I'm giving out the number. Every line is lit. People want to talk to you, Cornell West, so I'm going to abdicate my throne right now and hand it over. And callers, be pithy. Get to the point. Don't be somebody asked a question already. Hang up. You ain't got to ask the question a different way. Just let's go. Damon in Baltimore, you're up. Welcome.
Karen, thank you very much for having me, and Dr. West, thank you for coming on to the program. And I'll just say this: I get no pleasure out of this, but this campaign just feels like an exercise in narcissism. I don't see how this is supposed to progress us anywhere. We've already seen what damage can be done with your support that you gave to Jill Stein. And while it's important, all of the things that you're talking about, I think are important, but those should be issues that we are using to push the conversation instead of challenging the conversation. And I believe that you're doing more harm than good by challenging our best hope for being able to address those issues. So my question to you is, at what point do you step back? Because we know that you're not going to win, but at what point do you step back and you say, I want to help Biden to become the best person that he can be in this leadership post? And Karen, thank you again. I know the lines are lit.
I'm gonna let him answer this because this is the reason why I wanted to kind of review this interview, because like when I tell you the way he answered, oh baby, he felt like how I would feel if someone accused me of narcissism, because it was sort of like, and I see this a lot on like Clubhouse, and I see this a lot in terms of people thinking that they know what something is, right? And it's so frustrating because it's sort of like, well, you know what narcissism is. It's most definitely like people who just like are very self-absorbed, self-centered, don't care about how things affect other people, really just about themselves and all this other stuff. And it really involves one knowing someone in a way, right? And you can't have like, yeah, it's just mind-boggling where people just try to take, these clinical diagnoses that are handed out by professionals in those fields and think that they can just apply it to people because they just disagree with what they decide to do, right? As if to say, everything about Dr. Cornell West is out of selfishness, and everything that he does is about being self-centered and all this other stuff. And it's sort of like, you mean to tell me because we disagree, or you feel as if though you want me to agree with you in terms of me running for president and this not being the right time, that you're going to look over my whole life and the totality of my actions, how I live my life, and then say I don't give a fuck about nobody except myself, right? Like, you literally have this minuscule, this one thing that you disagree with, and for this I am now a narcissist. Like, it's so asinine, it's so dumb, it's so remedial, it's so whatever. Like, someone can disagree in terms of how they feel about someone or something, and how they want to react to it without them being a narcissist, right? Like, if something does not affect you, and I'm just outside of Cornell West, I'm just thinking about, situations. If someone is doing something that you disagree with, they're handling something in a way that seems selfish to you, that's still not enough to consider that person a narcissist, right? Especially if that person is dealing with something that only affects them, right? That has had effects on them. You literally cannot tell someone how to deal with that, right? And more or less, narcissists aren't... narcissism, it's so complex. It's like, I don't know why people try to use terms and try to come up with these weird ass labels for just to describe somebody in something that they may be doing that you disagree with. You can just disagree with something and that be that. But Dr. Cornell West, reads him. Dr. Cornell West sums it up way better than I think I could ever do. Like, everything that he says. That's all I'm going to say. Everything that he's about to say.
Yeah, no, I appreciate my brother raising the question. I mean, I don't like this talk about narcissism. He starts attacking me. my integrity or something. Come on, Damon, Baltimore. This ain't about narcissism. It's the last thing I need to do at my age. Just because I have a different conception of what it means to pursue truth and justice doesn't mean it can be reduced to narcissism.
Facts.
God Almighty, that sounds like talking points to these establishmentarian corporate media. No. We just have a different conception of how we go about pursuing truth and justice. If you had two parties like Frederick Douglass did in the 1850s, and both of them supported slavery, and he found the Liberty Party because he wants the abolition of black people. No, that's just an act of narcissism because you won't have any impact practically. You got to deal with whatever the two parties. No, both parties supporting slavery.
Facts.
You don't. One got a liberal version of slavery. One got a conservative version of slavery. You're still enslaved. What are we talking about here? People have different conceptions of how you pursue truth and justice without being narcissists, Brother Daniel. That's the first point I want to make. But the second point I want to make is that if it is the case that Biden is pushing us toward World War III.
Listen, I'm sorry, I had to come back in on that one because he is so, like, that was so on point. Like, what are you talking about? Like, how do you even grab narcissism to even bring into the like, narcissism, how can I explain, is, let's say you are dating somebody or you're in any type of, like, intimate relationship, meaning, like, family, like, boss and stuff like that. And you have this person who has a way, and I've dealt with a narcissist, okay? Not dated. I said I dealt. Difference. Catch that. And I remember this narcissist, and he's someone that I knew after I seen how he interacted with people that he was a narcissist. So, okay. So a narcissist is that person who is always doing things to people, right? And, never wanting to hold himself accountable, right? And then for him, if he did something, it's because you made him. So perpetually always trying to put the onus of his actions on other people, right? Like, if you weren't so crazy, if you didn't do that, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be this way, right? And narcissists are people who are extremely manipulative in terms of being able to activate people around them to see things and where they're always the victim and they're always the person that is being victimized. And so what ends up happening, they end up creating, like, flying monkeys out of people and family members and friends and stuff, where people feel like they need to protect this person who is the reason for why these things are happening with other people, right? But because the way they have a way of framing things and presenting things, they always look like they are the victim. They always look like people are doing things to them and they're not doing things to other people, right? A lot of times they'll probably have different groups of monkeys where, you know, where this group can only see the pureness in them and, you know, and see that they're actually a really nice person. Oh, they really, you know, they don't deserve this. And then they'll have another group of monkeys that are actively doing their bidding for them, right? Harassing people for them, right? Threatening the people, right? Gathering information for them, right? But then they'll have those other sympathetic flying monkeys for them. Like, those are like things narcissists do, right? They're not just people who, because they fundamentally disagree with a position in terms of, like, ideology, in politics and stuff like that, to decide, hey, I disagree and I don't feel as if though either you're the best person or I feel as if though I can challenge you in a way that could prepare you or make you a better person for what, you know, being president. That's not narcissism. That's not narcissism. That's just a person who just says, you know, I choose to go against. Nothing to do with narcissism. And it's strange that we are allowing people in society to take these words and use them and copy and paste them wherever they feel like they want to. The narcissists that I'm talking about in my real fucking life, they ain't a motherfucker on this earth. A pope could come down and talk to me. A pope could come talk to me. Jesus himself could come talk to me and I'd be able to kick it with him. That person is not getting away with that. And I don't care how you feel and how sympathetic you feel about their situation in life. I don't care what I've done in retaliation or in return to how they did what they've done. Y'all have sat back and watched this person do things to people for years and found it to be entertaining. And then one time they come across a motherfucker who says no. All of a sudden, they are victim. You can have my entire ass to kiss for eternity. And it's straight like that when it comes to people who are actually really narcissists. Because they find a way to make their life circumstances, the things that they've been through in life, as a reason to why they are who they are and why they behave the way they behave. I didn't have a father in my life to teach me things. You didn't have a father in life to teach you not to lie? You didn't have a father in life to teach you not to lie, not to be a dishonest person? We're talking about the bare minimums of what even society instills and tells you in terms of right and wrong, right? What are you talking about? Like, what are we doing? Right? That's a narcissist. That's a narcissist. They literally feel as if though life and their life and everything that's going on gives them more meaning and more cause to be the way that they are. And that's not a thing.
Three, if it is the case that he's not speaking to mass incarceration, he's not speaking to poverty, he's not speaking to decrepit schools and so forth, then all the pressure being brought to Biden in the world and Democratic Party, we've been doing that now for the last 20, 25 years, and they still haven't followed through on it. So what do you do? Now, I'm not saying that Damon's necessarily wrong, I'm necessarily right. I'm saying let's just try to have a serious conversation without reducing it down to, well, we got to support the status quo. We got to support the status quo. No, that's not how black folk have progressed over the years. Sometimes you got folk who do things that's outside of the existing framework.
But to Damon's point, and I think, I don't want to get hung up on the narcissism. I want to lean in on what he was saying, because if this puts us in a position to be harmed, because if black people vote for their lives, I don't think we're even tied to a particular party as much as we are tied to living and breathing, right? And the climate in this country right now is very dangerous for us. And especially for folk who are going regular people, who may not have security and, be in a coddled space, right? So for us, people are voting for their lives this time.
Absolutely, but people are voting for their lives whether Biden wins or Trump wins. Trump's already won. We had to deal with life issues for 4 years of, of vicious attack and so forth. But the idea that somehow Biden's going to create some great space, no, we have no evidence of that.
I don't think anybody believes that. Dr. West, I don't think anybody listen. I've been very vocal on these airways. Biden was my first, second, or third choice. But here's what I do know. He's not Trump or DeSantis or any of those other Republicans who absolutely want to turn back the hands of time. Now,
and this is where I'm at with that. He's not Trump and he's not DeSantis, but he's also somebody that I know in terms of when I look at the numbers or when I look at how the demographics of this country, DeSantis and Trump are people who make white people split hairs. He makes white people split hairs. He makes them take a side. He makes them he makes them go against each other more than I think that the Democrats do, right? Because even as a Republican, if a Democrat becomes in power and stuff like that, they really don't suffer all that much. Their bottom line, their pockets aren't hit. Nothing really changes about their life. But that DeSantis, that Donald Trump, they cause so much havoc and so much chaos that it's felt in the LGBT community spaces. It's felt in in the immigrant spaces, right? People who immigrate to this country because their rights and all this other stuff. It's felt that way. It's felt globally, the ripples of chaos that they cause. It's felt economic wise in terms of the benefits that for the rich keeps on helping the rich and all this other stuff and all that stuff that Donald Trump does in terms of tax breaks and helping people get away with bullshit and stuff like that. Yeah, they feel it because it splits them, right? So if it's going to be what it's going to be for us, no matter who it's going to be president, again, why do we have to be outside cheering Joe Biden on? Why? It does not make sense to me. Right? You have to outline something that says that for sure he's going to work on this. This is what he's saying he's doing that's going to help us, right? Because if not, I'm here for the chaos. I'm here for these motherfuckers having to pick a side and realizing that the classism affects more than just black people. I'm here for that. Yeah, I'm here for that. I'm here for when I seen, what's his name, Ron Perlman from them people's Avengers and stuff, where he talks about the strike and he says, motherfucker, who you talking about losing their homes, right? The shit that they feel, right? I'm here for that, where they realize everybody ain't on the same team when it comes to whiteness, right? I'm here for that type of stuff. So if you can't do something to disrupt the program, in my opinion, I'm not for it.
We're going to do what we need to do regardless. But yes, we want the best. But how do we get to the best? And let me stop talking and go to Tiffany in Atlanta, Georgia. Tiffany, hi, welcome.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Dr. West, I've always respected you. I still.
Oh no. Okay.
Karen stated earlier. Can you hear me?
Yes, you were going in and out quickly.
I'm gonna put. What I want to say is this: that at this point, you talked about Obama. Obama probably had certain ideas about what he could do when he got in there, and the reality was probably different. With Biden, we at least have someone at the table who will listen to us. You're not going to win. I know you know this. And so with you being as intelligent as you are, you have to know that you're taking votes away from a person we could at least go to the table with.
Go to the table? Did you see the way he spoke to black people?
We don't have anybody we can go to.
Okay. What do you say to that, Dr. West?
Well, one is I can feel the depth of the heartfelt power of what she's saying. That does touch me. See, that's a little different than narcissism issue. But she's talking from her heart.
Facts.
And the question would be, being able to sit at the table with Biden, even as the bombs are continually dropped in the West Banks, even though Wall Street still has greed that's out of control, even as poor folks still have needs unsatisfied. Yes, I think that this does have a point. It's just, for me, the question becomes, when do we ever tell our truths if all we can do is always be somehow concerned about being at the table? Because we've been at the table for so long and our folk are still suffering. We've been at the table so long, but the militarism abroad, taking 57 cents for every dollar, is increasing all the time. So does that mean that if the only choice is between this second civil war with Trump and the third world war with Biden, is that all we have? Is that all we can present to people? Just be at the table with a Joe Biden leading at World War III? That's the people's choice. I'm open to the choice, but at least I want to be able to raise my voice. Now, back to taking votes away, we should note that Jill Stein, 2/3 of Jill Stein voters would not have voted at all. So she wasn't taking votes away from Biden at all. They just wouldn't vote. 38% of Americans don't vote at all. Almost 60% of young people don't vote at all. So if you get their vote, you're not taking any votes away from the Democrats. These folks are giving up anyway for voting. They're just having to vote for somebody because they don't want to vote for the Democrats because the Democrats haven't done enough for them. They haven't earned their vote. I mean, the Democrats oftentimes talk about black people as if our vote is just private property. You owe us the vote. No, you got to earn the vote. You got to do something.
To your point, Dr. West, fewer than 40%, according to a Pew Research Center poll that came out yesterday. Fewer than 37% of eligible Americans voted in the last three elections. Three of the most important national elections. So, you're absolutely right. So let's give them something to vote about.
All right, y'all. So that's the end of the interview. Make sure you go check it out with Dr. Cornell West and Karen Hunter's show. I'm really enjoying her show, enjoying her channel. There's another part of this interview where he talks about he does support reparations, been supporting of reparations for 40 years. And for me, I mean, you got me, okay? You got me like a cheap hoe. No, so I'm just kidding, but you got me, though. Even though Biden says he would vote, he would, sign and vote for an executive order in terms of when it comes to reparations. But at the same time, don't tell me something and don't put the work behind it, right? Because at the end of the day, you have influences with like people like Elizabeth Warren out of my state. You have influences with a whole bunch of other powerful Democrats within the Democratic Party that you could most definitely tell them, we need you guys to get on board with this, and because your constituents are looking for me to come through on this, so I need you to sell this to the people, right? Because that's how that works. If you don't know politics, that's how that works, right? He calls down there to a couple friend of his, one hand washes the other, you know what I mean? That shit that you be seeing on, you know what I mean? Them political shows, they really do go down like this. He calls, those who owes favors, you know what I mean? Those who want him to come out and support them on the campaign trail. He gets with them. He's like, listen, I need you to get your constituents and, put it out there about how important reparations may be. Get people on board, right? That's what he does. He could do that. So telling me that you would sign it without putting that type of work and that type of pressure on, the people within your party is telling me nothing at all at the same time, right? All right. So we got to get that smart with it where we, what your actions look like, right? We try to just, sitting at the table. We've heard, like I said, how he's spoken to us privately, right? So with that being said, we just need more tangibles. We need more things outside of, what seems to be basic human rights in terms of when you talk about, like, I know Kamala Harris talks about lead and fixing the infrastructure that really affects, the black community. That's something you should be doing, period. Let's be clear about that, Miss Kamala Harris. That is something that you should be doing, period. That's not something that you should be highlighting a part of your strategy to run in campaigns. That is something that should be done because we pay taxes and it's the right thing to do to make sure that we have clean drinking water, right? Or that our highways and our cities and towns look a certain way. That's the bare minimum, right? That's not something to run on. That's not something that says that we are, invested in making sure you guys are progressing outside of having clean water. What? All right, y'all. I'm going to get out of here. Don't forget to follow me on them people's Instagram at OG_BougieAF. Then also on Twitter at I'm_Bougie_AF. You can also check me out on them people's TikTok at SheBougieAF. Okay? What else? That's it I got. Oh, and make sure you check out the variety show of clips that I put together of just little funny moments or little, commentary that I'm going to be giving, little issues, a little shorter, you know what I mean? Because this is pretty longer than a half an hour and the 10-minute clips and stuff that I've tried to put out. But, we got to get into the weeds of it all, right? And going into 2024, I'm most definitely going to be talking about these things. These are things that matter. This is the way I can feel like I can comfortably, give back and try to engage and try to drop knowledge and share information with my community. This is the best way for me. Okay. Now, if you want to get out there and get the mixing and mingling and be in all these type of organizations, hey, that's you have the stamina and you can get with that shit. Go ahead and get with that. But I personally can't. I personally can't. I can't. There's a lot that we have to work on in terms of organizing, in terms of getting together. For me, I don't have the tolerance for a lot of the nigga mentality, a lot of nigga shit that happens a lot of times, right? Organizations or even getting together to have intellectual conversations that turn into sexual conversations or who a man's attracted to and all this other remedial dumb shit, all these things that black folks are sometimes stereotyped for, right? For not being able to work together, it's just really weird. And I think sometimes it's really weird that we can't see that we do it. And it's dumb. Like, we get so centered around who's the person delivering the message and are they the right person and do they meet my criteria and do I like them and all this other stuff. And it's sort of like, it's Sunday and I won't have you over for Sunday motherfucking dinner, right? Like, whether or not we like each other or whatever, like, that shit don't matter. And we consistently get left behind because we could consistently get hung on the dumb shit. That's just what it is for me. Y'all know how we do it here. We keep it bougie as F. We keep it posh as F. We keep it black as F. We keep being blessed as F. Kiss, 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 kiss. And don't you forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Like I said, don't you forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.